I'm Jean Gray, publisher of American Entrepreneurship Today and host of the podcast series Experience Voices, where I talk with highly accomplished people who share the critical elements that led to their success. My guest today on Experience Voices is Kevin Damoa, founder of Glīd Technologies, that is solving the century-old road-to-rail problem with an autonomous dual-mode vehicle and AI orchestration software. Kevin shares how he marshaled his SpaceX and combat logistics experience to become a venture-funded hard-tech startup. He delves into funding for a capital-intensive venture, developing his concept and achieving proof of concept, and beginning early-stage production. This is no small feat. Kevin, welcome to Experience Voices.
Thank you so much for having me.
I am very curious about your startup. You have accomplished so much in such a short period of time, and you have this interesting background. So let's start with the mission of Glīd Technologies.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much. And thanks for having me on this amazing show. So the mission that we here have at Glīd is to democratize our ground-based transportation. And when I say ground-based, I'm looking at road and rail, consolidating into two corridors, utilizing them for what they're actually built for, and then bringing in next-gen technology. For us, the way that we solve that problem is mode shifting from road to rail and load balancing between the two, utilizing next-gen technologies. Our product, our gliders, they're manned vehicles as well as human-in-the-loop autonomous vehicles that essentially can pick up road commodities and transport them directly on the rails. And what we do as a business is we remove the friction points and all the touch points that are currently in place that make rail inaccessible. So we have a mission to make rail as accessible as road is.
Well, let's step back and I'll put the challenge to you to give the listener a description of the actual structure that you built that fills this gap. And then we can get into how you came up with this great idea. So try to give a visual of, you've got pallets sitting somewhere. They've got to go from one place to the other. What was the problem? What did you solve? And what does it look like?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's turn those pallets into containers. So say you have a 20-foot container at a port, and the current way you do things is the boat will pull up to the port, a crane will pick up the container from the boat and then put it on an intermediate truck called a hostler. That hostler will drive over to those tall stacks, and then the tall stacks of containers. A forklift will pick it up and then put it on the top of the tall stack for buffer. When that container is called to go out, another forklift picks it up, puts it onto another hostler truck, drives over to the railroad track, and then another forklift picks it up and puts it on the railroad track on top of a train cart. And then the train waits 2 to 6 weeks until it's fully loaded because a unit train won't leave until it reaches its units of economics. What we do at Glīd is same boat will pull up, the crane will drop it onto our Raiden vehicle. Raiden will drive over to the railroad tracks and then drive down the tracks. So you go from 6 different steps, 6 different types of touches and industrial equipment down to one machine. And that machine is actually operated by us. We are a transportation and as well as an OEM. So we build really cool product to service others. And then on top of it, we're a software company. So we've created a software product called Ezra 1.6 that essentially takes that environment that I just explained to you, puts it into a digital twin environment in order for us to work out of. And we pair that so our customers have full transparency across the board. So we are that sovereign infrastructure layer for that movement and movements like that across commercial as well as defense.
It sounds like with you removing multiple touches that there's cost savings in your model to the customers. Was that a key selling point?
Yeah, it's the cost savings from the direct cost savings is the first one. The second one is the cost savings associated with eliminating each one of those material handling touches, from your capital equipment to actually all the people that are involved in the process. And I say that very boldly because if you look at the way that labor shortages are starting to come up, you see there's a silver lining now where you have the silver age of folks that were your forklift and your crane operators that are now starting to retire, and those jobs aren't being filled by the new generation. And I think I fall within that silver generation as well, because folks my age aren't doing these jobs. So we're eliminating jobs that are naturally starting to attrit as a part of our business model. And through that, we're eliminating that cost there as well. The third layer is the charges associated with making that movement work. Those are called material handling charges, as well as accessorial charges that deal with the drayage, as well as the dwell time. That's the time that the container or the forklift or the truck has to sit in the detention time where it sits on that train for that line haul. We're eliminating all those charges as well in that three stack up of cost savings.
The vehicle, you call it a dual mode vehicle. Is that how you refer to what you're constructing?
Yeah, we call them gliders.
Gliders. Okay. That's
Yes.
a lot easier. So
Yeah.
now we can start with the whole aspect that you had a concept for this, but let's just jump right away into how do you build something like that as a startup, as a prototype? Because it's a sizable structure, right?
Yeah, I've been building big structures basically my entire life, designing ground support equipment. Did that at SpaceX and then worked with a lot of, we call it material handling equipment in the military, MHE, in the military and the Army, as well as the Air Force. But how do you put your hands on something that's much bigger than the car in your shop and build it to serve a purpose for something that heavy? You do it with great people and great minds and with experience. So Raiden, our first vehicle, the fully autonomous vehicle, Tony Petroborg and he was the chief engineer at Glīd, actually built that product with our hands. We started building that at my home at Shaver Lake because we knew that manufacturing with another person would be expensive. Plus, we wanted to build it ourselves. I want you to do it where you can actually walk through the experience and the pain points of actually doing it. So yeah, we designed it, we built it. It took us about a 10-week process from the time that we idealized Raiden, is the autonomous vehicle, to the time that we put it in the back of a trailer and drove it out to Detroit and unveiled it at Reindustrialize. It was a lot of work. It was very tedious and cumbersome, but definitely worth it in the process to fully understand what it takes to actually make one of these things work.
So now you have your prototype. Who did you reach out to in the industry that took it from your garage, so to say, to
Yes.
to actually deploying it into a real life situation that gave you what they call proof of concept?
We did in reverse. So we reached out to folks first in order to get a signal from the market. And we put Raiden into a rendering first and then marketed that out to folks. Hey, first we have this idea. And when we're explaining this idea, it's added this world. Hey, we have this truck train robot that is going to move your commodities in a way that it hasn't been done before. We're going to eliminate all these great steps. It sounds like snake oil. So put it into a render to show them what it was. And they're like, wow, that is fantastic. So we started to show folks a reality and it felt like it always should be there. That was our first step. So the rendering did well for us for a while, but it didn't do enough. So we knew we needed to put the product in the person's hand, and we wanted to do that on one of the grandest stages, and that was Reindustrialize, where you have this huge event out in Detroit that brings in commercial manufacturers and shippers with defense and the warfighter on this grand stage. And we put it on that stage for folks to touch it. We actuated the rail gears. They saw us drive the thing in via remote to actually see us in the real world. And I think that was a big validation point. I know it was a big validation point because we ended up oversubscribing our pre-seed round because of said action.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
How did the emergence of AI impact because I believe you said you started in 2022. So did the emergence of AI accelerate your model or make your model even much more reachable because AI was now around?
Yeah, I think it was a combination of two things. So AI wasn't what it is now. Back in 2022, it was still nuanced and folks are still trying to figure it out. I think that at the time, even Elon himself was like, hey, be careful for AI. There was a lot of warnings, there was a lot of taboo surrounding it. But doing the research and knowing that I was going to be something, given what emerging technologies was doing, AI and electrification and robotics were starting to converge at that time. So reading the market, I knew that in order for us to compete at the level that we wanted to compete and sustain that we had to integrate AI in both the physical realm of things as well as the digital realm of things, combining atoms and bit in a way to synchronize the way that we do things. So from the very beginning, we had that incorporated in the product design for Raiden, as well as the thought process behind Azure 1.6, which is our AI orchestration tool.
Where did you tap into the AI expertise at that point? Because building something structurally, you have a mechanical engineering background, but AI is a different animal. So you went out and found someone who could integrate into your company, or you outsourced it. Give the listener a hint of how you took on that challenge.
First, I tried myself. Being an engineer, you see folks doing it, you're like, I'm going to see what it takes to actually do it very poorly. Is how we did it in the beginning. And then we found Chaitali Narla. She was our first CTO here at Glide. She was a veteran of Google. She went from intern to director, was there for about 15 years. So she helped bolster us on the digital side of things, as well as educate me and train me better on the physical AI side for better integration. And that was around 2024. So I had 2 years of kind of pain trying to figure out what AI was. And I believe during that time, physical AI as well as the digital AI didn't quite merge in that way, especially as it is now. Now you really can't do physical AI or physical technology that is going to be for next gen without AI incorporated or overlaid into it. But at the time, it wasn't a necessity. It was like, hey, you can do all the same jobs without having artificial intelligence piped into it. You just had the right lines of code in order to make sure that your thing actuated and moved the way that you needed it to be. So Chaitali coming on board helped us out. And then emerging technology started to rear its head quite a bit from 2024 into 2026. You just seen the rapid acceleration of AI adoption across the board for everything.
Now, everything that you described sounds so smooth and self-assured today.
Yes.
And I'm going to probe a little bit on this, especially with the people that you brought on board, your CTO and your engineer. Share a little bit about the pauses that you got to, the milestones that you got to where you needed to bring on more personnel, build your team out. What were the challenges, and did funding help you connect the loop that brought other people into the venture?
Yeah, absolutely. No, this is a great question. So the challenge at first is not having enough bandwidth. You can imagine being a founder and CEO that has done everything as an operator. I've been an engineer and a logistician and a programmer and a mechanic and a financier and a financer. You tend to adopt all these things all at once. And then you notice quite rapidly you run out of bandwidth. So you start to onboard folks to fill in that bandwidth. But as you accelerate your success, new challenges pop up that actually start to shake the foundation of your unit, that smartly bloats your business a little bit. So you have to have the control and the self-awareness to ensure that it doesn't bloat too much where you can go into some runway issues because you explode your headcount too fast. So having that constraint was really important. But the pain points that came was customer adoption. How fast can we accelerate and deploy these things out to customers to get them into their hands? Are we talking to the right customers? Are we on these floors where we can actually show the world our product? Attending these different conferences, going to these pitch meetings, they take time and investment and people, as well as running all of the front end as well as the back end processes as a business took a lot as well. That had us hire additional levels. So you have your C-level, and then we hired our heads of different verticals, and then the doers that worked underneath them. And we're still in the process of doing it. So that accelerated our fundraise. So more transparently, we wanted to raise 2 million. We ended up raising like 8.5 million and being oversubscribed. But at the same time, we went from having 3 employees to having 14 employees across multiple states in order to service the customer footprint and the profile that we adopted and needed to actually inject into during that time period. So we went from California and then expanded out to Texas, Kansas, and then Detroit in order to hit all of those veins of reindustrialization, both on the commercial side as well as the defense side, especially as the realities of today started to rear its head, from the tariffs that happened to the rails being severely underutilized in places in our main veins, to the wars happening on multiple fronts throughout the world and the warfighter being activated in a big way, all came at the same time. And the epicenter was in all of these locations at the same time. So we wanted to position Glide to be there, just given what the market was given to us.
I think you shared just a number of the challenges that I was going to ask you. What were some of the big ones? I guess a few wars, tariffs. I guess you could say a lot was thrown at you, but you kept going.
Yes, absolutely. We kept gliding.
Pun intended.
Yes.
So you put what they call skin in the game. You
Mhm.
took money out of your savings. Did you set up a business partner and they put some money in to get you? Because this is a lot about the funding aspect of getting through your first milestones. And if
Yeah.
you can't get through them, then the people who really write the checks, they never get to see you. So,
Yes.
so how much of this did you go like a year or two bartering, getting people involved but not yet paying them? What were kind of the little bit of the tricks of the trade to get finally to be in front of investor and looking legitimate?
So we tried out of the gate to get in front of investors. And when I say we, I mean we as Glide and just me as a solo founder at the time until I brought on another individual, but I was trying to pitch as many people as possible, not knowing what pitching really was, really shaping my storytelling, bootstrapped the company for a few years before we got our first institutional funding from investors. And then we got some angels in along the way as well in very small checks, but not enough to actually be dangerous. But we went through Antler's Incubator in 2024, and that taught me a lot. It showed me where I was making the mistakes in pitching the business as well as structuring the business, how to be attractive to a VC and a high net worth person, and to storytell in a way that sells as an actual company and not just this vision of this toy that may or may not help the world, to be able to qualify and quantify the problem in a way that it can pay dividends into investors into our business. So Antler taught us a lot of that. We went through that accelerator for about 3 months, and then we got our first big investment in 2025, and that came from Antler as well as the Veterans Fund. And we started to get on the pitch circuit. So one thing that I would tell founders or folks that are starting on this journey is join an accelerator and find a mentor, or do both at the same time. You'll need a person that'll look at doing what we're doing, a founder mentor, and they'll tell you the struggles that they have, and you pair that with this real world knowledge that this accelerator will give you. And a lot of the real world knowledge is tied to theory as well. So you have the full picture put together while you're navigating it.
So the accelerator got you to the warm introductions, and they themselves even became an investor. So that seems like a game changer to me.
Yes, absolutely.
And they took you through the whole aspect of pitching and getting rejections, or since you were in their accelerator, you were able to jump over the hundreds and hundreds of rejections other entrepreneurs describe?
Well, I think during the process, trying to pitch all these folks, you get more no's and yeses. And you get a lot of maybes as well, but maybes are actually no. You start to realize that over time. But yeah, they teach you how to handle that. But a lot of it's grace. One attribute that I think that most founders or folks that want to do this journey is to have grace for themselves, as well as the person on the other side, to not beat up either side. You know, a no is a no, and there's wisdom in those no's and those maybes. And then there's wisdoms in taking those rejections and asking for that feedback as to why that no is, so you can apply that to your talk track as well as your business and make you even stronger. So I am more appreciative of the no's than I am of the yeses, because the no's have helped propel me to where we are today.
In the early days, did you ever get to a spot where you thought, can't do it?
Oh, it was like almost every day. You know, God says, be still, right? The first is send me. And I felt like I was sent to do this. This mission is something that I've worked on my entire life. So was I the right person is the question that I ask myself quite daily, even now sometimes, like, hey, am I supposed to be here? And that answer is yes. And be still in it. And it will come through patience as well as tenacity and grit, are the three things that are needed to do it. But yeah, it's a question that you ask yourself a lot. It's a sacrificial role, being a CEO of a startup or even a CEO of a company looking to change the way that a legacy system or a collection of legacy systems have operated over time. And there's more I would say, downside to it than it is upside. Your upside is not rooted in self, is rooted in paying back to your community in full fold and taking bits and pieces of it and paying dividends into the people that pour into you, your vessel in that community is the reality of it all.
It's what you put out can come back. And
Absolutely.
it seems you really understand that formula. You did bring up
Yeah.
one point, and in terms of adoption in the marketplace, you built something or are building something that's displacing forklifts, displacing certain things.
Mhm.
So, is your biggest challenge existing infrastructure and the resistance of change, or are there competitors emerging that see your technology and may try to enter the market?
Yeah, I believe it's a combination of both. Logistics is one of the oldest service industries of the world. And I believe the most important. I'm biased, though. I've been in this field my entire life. But to change something that has been, stuck in time for so long and has been iterated so slowly, there's definitely resistance and adoption, especially at the level that we want to. We say, don't ship it, just glide it, meaning we want to be the next way that you move things, that six iteration or mode of transportation. So you have ground, rail, ocean, air, space now, and then glide, being able to shift between the two corridors. So naturally, yes, you'll have, that's crazy. I'm not going to do that. It never exists. So you get that side of it. The other side is, yes, you're going to get incumbents. I love watching Marvel comic movies. And I was watching the Avengers the other night, and the Vision is like this cybernetic robot, superhuman superhero. He said that the number of big conflict events in the world has corresponded with the number of heroes that have come out to head. It's the same thing with technology. The better your technology is, the more folks want to create their own to compete or fill the gap in ways that they feel that you missed. So the best thing to do is create consistently. You see the top companies do this, SpaceX and Andro and folks like them, where yes, you'll see incumbents come out to the market, but what is your moat? What is your unfair advantage where folks can't keep up? So for us, it is that road to rail transportation. We have folks that sit on both sides for emerging technologies. We have rail folks, and then we have road folks. We have no one that fits that mold in between. Glide sits in that solely, and we have the only patent for that as well.
Did the early investors buy into the challenge and the time frame for you to build out the technology and get the early adopters? Was that a key element of the pitch for them to realize you could do it, but there was going to take some time and they were willing to spend that time with you?
So it's on two sides. So for our product, we have the Glider M as well. So the Glider M is built by a contract manufacturer with us. We supported in that joint design process. So we built a first of its kind vehicle called the Glider M that has a hook lift on the back capable of picking up a fully loaded 20-foot container. And then it has road and rail wheels so we can deploy now. That product takes about 4 months to build. And once it's built, we have full certification. That's all we have to do is put a driver in. So that was really interesting to investors. So not only would they be able to see the product working in real time, this is a functionality from going from road to rail, but we'll be able to fulfill the customer pipeline that we were able to garnish during that time in quick succession. So we didn't have to wait for homologation as well as certification for Raiden in order to show the benefits of what our theory is for Glide. We can do that with Glider M while going through homologation and certification for the fully robotic vehicle for Raiden. So that was really interesting for investors as well as customers.
But from the time that you are completing that and your early adopters where you're going to scale, is that something you're achieving over a time frame of months or maybe 2 to 3 years?
Yeah, it's going to be a matter of months. Glider M is currently in 2 locations. One's in California, one's in Texas, entering pilot activities in the coming months. We're in the process of onboarding those Sentinel operators to go through some training, and then we'll deploy them out with active customers within our pipeline, within our book of business, almost simultaneously. So operating in 2 disparate locations on 2 different commodities underneath a Glide paradigm, having our hardware and our software do its thing and being that next transporter that we speak to. We're looking at U3 on having that actually happen.
That's pretty exciting, I would say, to have reached this point where everything's
Yes,
pulling together.
absolutely.
You'll send me some videos, right?
Yes, I definitely will. You know I will.
So, as we're getting sort of close to the end of our conversation, share a little bit about the service disabled veteran owned small business program that you have had involvement in helping your venture.
Yeah, so I'm a service disabled veteran, and that is the SBA has that certification that you can go through for folks that are service connected disabled. And what that does is it exposes you to venture capital as well as banking on the debt side, as well as opportunities throughout the industry as well to help bolster your business. When you apply for different contracts, it gives you a bit of an upper leg as well, and I'm grateful for it. To be able to serve this country, I feel is a great honor, but to be able to be repaid back for, something that we want to invest our time and energy to as business owners on the banking side as well as certification side is quite rewarding.
And the Veterans Fund, share a little bit about their background.
Yeah, the Veterans Fund, I love those folks, by the way. They were the ones that gave us our big shot. We're a part of a pitch competition with JCal where we placed in the top three before we were anybody. We were going through Antler's Accelerator at the time, and Ryan found us after we applied and he gave us a good shot, and then met with Justin and Mike and Lisa, just lovely people. But they are veteran ran. They have service members that run the fund. And what they do is they invest in founders that were service disabled connected or just veterans within themselves that are doing very hard things to service our community. Life after service, from boots to boardroom, and solving the most mundane problems at the greatest risk. And that's what most of the Veterans Fund portfolio is made up of, founders that meet that genetic makeup.
That's pretty awesome that exists for entrepreneurial veterans they took the risk of going into the military, and if that wasn't enough, they wanted to become entrepreneurs. So
Yes.
there's a story in itself about that mindset that we don't have time for, Kevin.
Gotcha.
So the last part is something that you intrigued me when we were first talking, was about the whole environmental and social impact of what is going to roll out over the coming months and years with your new technology. So share a little or explain a little bit about how that is going to occur.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a part of our system. So if you look at the transportation system since the beginning of time, the railroads as ports and a lot of our service corridors are built around marginalized communities that house folks that are a lot of times forgotten about, or they were in towns where they're once thriving. Look at Detroit or a lot of our rural towns that were the source of our lumber and our minings. And when those goods started to go away and be outsourced overseas, was outshored. It was those jobs left communities burdened. Communities that were once thriving are now impoverished because of it. So what our technology does is it goes in and it revitalizes those communities. It provides those folks with real generational wealth in the form of new jobs as well as the knowledge and new capital in order to bolster those rail lines, pull those folks out of those communities and actually make their communities richer is what we want to do. Imagine when your relics become resources. It's something that I think about quite often, and I see rails and as well as these decaying towns and communities as those relics that are actually our resources. As we look to reindustrialize America, where do you pull those jobs from? Where do you pull those resources from if you're not going to import them in and you're going to depend on the American strength? It's going to come from those communities. And that's exactly what Glide focuses on.
It sounds like a very strong economic development component that is a big part of your mission. That's pretty cool.
Thank you. Thank you.
So you've shared so much, but I'll still pose that last question. If you have advice for a first-time entrepreneur, what would it be?
I would say think about the problem that you're looking to solve and ensure that it's a problem, and look in and make sure you're that person to solve it. One thing that I see with a lot of founders and entrepreneurs is they go to a problem that looks cool in the public. I want to be the next Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk or you name that person. But the problem that they're looking to solve isn't actually a problem. It's a widget. it's going to not really fix anything sustainably. So that's the first item that I would say. The next is to educate yourself on how you solve said problem on each one of those core tiers. The product, how do you fund said product? How do you reach said customers? How do you sustain those customers? And how do you continue to iterate and evolve your product as the problem gets worse, right? Because the problem gets slowly better, but as change gets incorporated, you have bigger things that weren't thought about. So that's advice that I would give to a person.
Yes, I think we all walk around and see a lot of problems be solved, but the entrepreneur really understands the difficulty of the execution. And you shared today, Kevin, really an impressive journey of taking on something of really quite complexity in the logistics and transportation industry. So I very much thank you for being a guest on Experienced Voices.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been an absolute blessing to talk to you. Thank you for the conversation.
You have been listening to the podcast series Experienced Voices. To hear more and subscribe, visit AmericanEntrepreneurship.com/podcast, where you will also find a form for listener feedback.